Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV WORLD. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the development in the political situation of the country with regards to what happened yesterday in the National Assembly. In the aftermath of that, the Supreme Court had taken a suo motu notice of the legality of the current situation after the no confidence motion was rejected by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly yesterday, and then subsequently the National Assembly was also dissolved. We're going to take a look at what happened at the hearing today with regards to the arguments that were presented and how the larger bench was hearing the case. It has now been adjourned till 12 p.m. tomorrow. And we also know that the bench has said that it's going to come to a reasonable decision, and it wants to come to the decision soon as well. So we're hoping that we're going to get some information pretty soon on this. So far, what we know of the case is that it is being heard and the legality is being debated upon whether or not what has currently happened yesterday with regards to the National Assembly session is constitutional or not. A lot of the arguments were given that we're going to explore in our show further today, and also take a look at how it's going to impact the political situation of the country, what is happening with regards to the different parties and the government and the opposition parties, how they're reacting, and what is the political future of the country. Should the nation be prepared for early elections, and if so, what are the narratives that are being discussed? At the end of the show, we'll also take a look at the situation in India with regards to the appointment of the new Chief of Army Staff. We have spoken about this at length with regards to who is going to be the choice after the post of the CDS was open, and now we know that General Nirvane is in the front line for the post of CDS, and while Manoj Pandey is in line for the Chief of Army Staff. We're going to explore further in detail what sort of decision factors are going to be taken into account with regards to who is going to become the next Chief of Army Staff in India. This is going to be discussed in the debate today. With me is Raja Faisal and Farrukh Pitafi as always, and we'll be joined online by our guests soon, and I'll introduce them when they join us. Farrukh, let's take a recap of what has happened with regards to the situation in the National Assembly yesterday that has culminated in our hearing today. What has been going on in the country since yesterday?
Right. I was honestly hoping that you're going to ask Raja Faisal this question because he has been more active one. I am mostly homebound. But let me just point out, yesterday, if you remember, first of all, the Deputy Speaker, before the vote of the House, actually dismissed the entire motion to dismiss or conduct a vote of no confidence. And then the Assembly was prorogued. And then we heard the Prime Minister, who actually sent the National Assembly packing. So there was a suo motu that was taken by the Honorable Court yesterday, and today was the start of the formal hearing. It will continue tomorrow as well. But today we saw 2 or 3 things that actually make the People's Party's approach suspect.
All right.
Remember, Asif Ali Zardari has always been thought this master of politics who can play many games simultaneously. So there seems to be something very interesting going on.
Okay.
First of all, their Honorable Counsel actually went and demanded that the court be actually a full court rather than the larger bench. That objection of prayer was rejected by the court because, of course, time is of the essence. And then he seemed to not prepare for the whole case. So in the end, instead of making or debating or making the dismissal of Assembly the main issue at hand, he ended up or got bogged down into debating the jurisdiction of the Speaker's office. Which we know is covered by Article 69. So that seems that his own case was spoiled by his party, or the party's case was spoiled by him, and that continues. We still have to wait and see what becomes of the whole case tomorrow, because tomorrow the government's counsel is going to speak as well. But it seems that the way the opposition is pursuing the case is actually not helpful to their own cause.
All right. So what are you trying to say is, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not trying to say anything.
All right. Okay. Well, Faisal, when we speak about what has been going on with regards to the court's hearing today, as Farrukh was talking about that, of course, PPP and Zardari have a lot of tricks under their belt. What really do you think is the opposition's agenda at the moment?
Well, obviously, opposition did not want this to happen. They did not want the Prime Minister to go like this. They just wanted to oust him through the larger number in the Parliament. with the help of member of National Assemblies. And this is how they wanted this to end. And later on, of course, they at least for 3 to 4 months, they wanted to govern, and they wanted to do certain things like as mentioned by Prime Minister Imran Khan as well, and PTI believes that they wanted to shun the earlier we had a jurisdiction in which EVM was allowed, and then of course overseas Pakistanis, they could have voted for as well, which does not go in the favor of the opposition parties, because we know that traditionally overseas Pakistanis are always siding with Imran Khan, being obviously he's considered as a charismatic leader for them. And what they wanted to do is in 3-4 months they wanted to give a budget, a reasonable budget for people of Pakistan, and they wanted to make a mark that we are the good ones, and the ones you had who came in power with so many promises, they did not deliver to you, and here we are, we delivered. And this is what they wanted to do. Plus, as the Prime Minister Imran Khan believes, and he keeps on talking about it, that the process of accountability could have packed up and go home. And NAB, I think NAB was at the hit list of the opposition. So this won't take place now, and that's why Prime Minister Imran Khan went for this. I just wanted to mention that a couple of days before this happened, me and a few of my good friends, very able friends, we were having a talk, and they asked me what could we do, and we all agreed on this, that there were three situations or 3 steps that could be taken by the ruling party, of course PTI. Number one, they obviously will be trying for getting the number right, so they can save Prime Minister, and how to do it, but under the table as well. And there is another way, that if Prime Minister Imran Khan keeps on trying through portraying as he's the leader and he's going ahead, and he will be taking more seats in the next elections, as he was delivering all of the jalsas as well.
But we are at a different situation right now at the moment. Let me also welcome in the show Arif Chaudhry, who is a legal expert, and he's joined us on telephone line. Thank you so much, Mr. Arif, for being with us today. What has happened in the Supreme Court's hearing, of course, is an important decision is pending on that as well. There is a discussion with regards to the legality of what happened in the National Assembly yesterday. What do you make of the court's hearing today, and where do you think the decision is headed?
Is this me to answer, Arif Chaudhry?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Chaudhry
Yes,
Saab.
sir.
Yeah. Actually, there are a few things which need to be clarified. One thing is that, Pakistan is so politically polarized at the moment that, you cannot find any neutral or impartial opinion from any side, because even our Pakistan Bar Council and our Supreme Court Bar Association has become partisan very clearly, and we have taken the sides already with the opposition and the PDM. So the questions which are being asked right now, they are very important, and we should not lose sight of the fact that, the question is the sovereignty of the parliament and sovereignty of the country. Because
Right, but Arif Saab, surely the larger bench that's hearing the case is impartial, as you're saying.
Right, and let me add to this, Arif Chaudhry Saab, since we are talking about the approaches of various lawyers as well, and particularly the counsel from People's Party, Farrukh Saab, who has been Chairman Senate in the past, must know the workings of Parliament inside out. How did you actually assess his performance today? Why is it that someone of that capacity was struggling today before the bench?
Yeah, because it shows the desperate situation, because, everybody knows that, the ruling of speaker carries a weight, and, and moreover, the questions which are being asked by the bench, that also, speak, volumes about, the legality or illegality of the issue, and particularly on the other side, things moving, tilting towards other side. Because, I would say, on the dissolution side, and, this in favor of the ruling. because there was a particular question, if you remember that today what happened, that was there any debate or any discussion on the question of motion, whether why they want to move a motion against the Prime Minister, no confidence motion? So the answer was no. And then there was a question whether there was any question raised from the benches, opposition benches, that why you are not having any debate on this point. So if you don't make any debate, and then all of a sudden you expect that the Prime Minister should be ousted, through vote of no confidence, and the government having that point of view that they don't have to be showing this evidence to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, because it's a very sensitive issue, and those sensitive areas where they were supposed to bring, that point.
All right, Arif Sahib, we'll discuss this further as well. Let me also welcome in the debate Mr. Asad Rahim Khan, who's a barrister and constitutional lawyer. Thank you very much, Mr. Asad Rahim, for joining us in the show today. With regards to what happened in the Supreme Court hearing, with reference to, of course, the legality of the current situation after what happened in the National Assembly yesterday, there have been a lot of different issues that have been discussed, such as what Chaudhry Sahib was also mentioning with regards to the prerogative of the Deputy Speaker, the letter regarding the foreign conspiracy, whether or not it was shared in the Parliament, and then, of course, the fact that whether or not this actually is an unconstitutional move that has happened with regards to the Deputy Speaker. What really is the core issue at the matter, and how do you see the Supreme Court hearing in this regard?
Gee, thank you so much for having me. There are two core questions, and both pertain to constitutional articles. The first is Article 58, which holds that a Prime Minister cannot dissolve the assemblies while a vote of no confidence has not been voted upon but has been given in the assembly. And this was a means to step over that bar and then subsequently dissolve the assembly after the Speaker rejected the motion. So the Supreme Court will have to decide whether or not this is an infringement of Article 58. The second core question has to do with Article 69, which holds that the court cannot call into question parliamentary procedures. But we've had precedent in the past where the Supreme Court has held that if the Speaker's action has been premised on malicious intentions, or if it were without jurisdiction, then the court can actually call it into question, and it will be the court's jurisdiction to set it aside. So these are two principles that are running side by side that the court will have to look at and reconcile if we are to actually get out of this deadlock.
Right. Asad, can you tell us why is it that we are still debating only the jurisdiction or prerogative of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, rather than actually discussing the dismissal of Assembly as well? Do you think that whatever, explanation was given by the Prime Minister in his advice to the President satisfies the court?
Farrukh Sahib, that's an excellent question. We are debating jurisdiction because it is so intimately linked to the question of dissolution. If the Speaker had not rejected the motion, the Prime Minister was barred by the Constitution from actually dissolving the Assembly. So it is only after the Supreme Court upholds the validity of the Speaker's ruling that we can say that the Prime Minister was right to dissolve the assemblies. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Sorry to cut you, Asad Sahib, sorry to cut you, but that happens when we are connecting the two things, right? At this moment, I am just asking about dissolving. One fine morning, a Prime Minister actually ordering dismissal of the Parliament. Can that also happen even if there was nothing related to vote of confidence or no confidence, and whether that will be challenged in the court, and whether there is enough ground for dismissal regardless of what happened on the floor of the House?
Sir, the Prime Minister has been empowered by the Constitution to dissolve the assemblies, and in that regard his powers are quite substantial. This is because we've had to go through the bitter experiences of the past when presidents would be sending parliaments home of their own accord through Article 58(2)(b). It's happened multiple times in 88, 93, 96. And as a result of that, the 18th Amendment then brought this power back to the Prime Minister. So by itself, I don't see that there should be any issue with dissolution. It's just that, again, I would come back to the same question that this dissolution did not happen by itself and is actually linked to the Speaker's rejection of the motion.
All right, we'll come back to this discussion as well. Let me welcome in the show Mr. Zahid Gashkori, who's a journalist. He's joined us. Thank you very much. And you've been a part of the Supreme Court's hearing today as well. Could you also give us an analysis of what transpired in the Supreme Court today and the arguments that were presented?
Thank you very much. Today, the environment was quite charged. I've seen that it's a fully crowded courtroom of Supreme Court of Pakistan. So, actually, Supreme Court, it's a quite possibility that they are going to give the interim order tomorrow. Today, there was argument by the opposition parties. The major focus was on 3 points. 3 point number one, either the deputy speaker who was just conducting the proceeding of the National Assembly uh, uh, has made the overstepping. This was the question that either he took the right decision in light of Article 95, the Section 4, and the secondly, the Article 69 also came to under discussion that either Supreme Court of Pakistan can investigate the proceeding of the lower house of the parliament, and thirdly, what would happen, what exactly happened to the legality of the no confidence motion. This is very vital question raised by the Supreme Court today, that the motion was not questioned. The legality of the motion was not questioned at all. First of all, it was accepted, it was scrutinized, and thirdly, it was tabled uh, by the secretary on the point of order and the agenda of the parliament. And the fourthly, the very important point, leave was granted on this motion. And this is very vital and turning point in the motion, that when the deputy speaker, who was the chair at that time, can only work as a presiding officer, and it has to happen that he was supposed to go for the uh, voting. He has had not the authority. This was the argument by the Farrukh H. Naik, the Council for Pakistan People's Party, one of the parties, in the opposition. He argued this. On this very point, the Chief Justice also questioned that why did opposition political parties not attended the National Security Committee meeting? The opposition parties were invited to discuss the legality, discuss the points of letter, letter.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Zahid, for giving us that update as well. And I want to discuss each of these points in detail as well. Let me also start off with the fact that when we speak about whether or not the deputy speaker even had the prerogative to dismiss the notion, Mr. Arif, when we look at the situation in this way, how relevant is this going to be with regards to when we're questioning the legality of dismissing the no confidence motion in light of what has happened? Is this something that perhaps can change the way the larger bench is going to look and decide on the matter?
There are many vital questions, particularly if they come to other side, when they ask about, the opposition, why didn't they attend the, meeting of the parliamentary party and also committee, security council, security committee meeting, when they were invited to attend that. And that was on with the particular question of the government staff, that, this move was motivated, and it was directly conspired, by a foreign country, and on their saying, under their direction, the motion was moved, in the House to oust an elected prime minister in a way which should not have happened. So this is, if they come to that question and on that side, then the government has very strong case, because then they can talk about the legality of the motion itself. Because the other question which was posed was about the discussion about the motion. Because even if you have to charge and remove a secretary or a patwari from his post, you have to charge him for something, and a house, before removing their leader, they are just jumping upon emotion and without giving him any opportunity or saying anything, alleging anything that due to these reasons we are going to move a no confidence motion against that. And that's due to these reasons you have lost the confidence of the House because it is not sufficient that a certain number of people of members of the parliament they gather together and they say we don't want him.
All
That
right.
should be
So
some.
Chaudhry Sahab, does this mean that if the legality of this rejection of the no confidence motion is accepted and it is deemed constitutional, but if this deputy speaker's prerogative is deemed is said that it's not possible for him to be able to reject the motion, what are we going to see?
That's a moot point because if the Supreme Court comes to this conclusion that the deputy speaker of the House did not have the authority or jurisdiction to go beyond the mandate for the day and the requirement for the day because he was just presiding officer. And, it was the prerogative of the speaker. And if speaker was not there, even to my mind, it really is boggling something in my mind that why the speaker just handed it over to him, a piece of paper, and he read it over and by saying that it was written by, and then finally he gave the name of the speaker. And why didn't he attend? Although, sir, many people say that because
All right. Okay.
Barrister Asad, I just want to come towards you. If we look at the statement, of course, on the floor of the parliament by Fawad Chaudhry, and of course, this is under question as well, and it will be discussed within the Supreme Court. And as Zahid Gishkori has rightly pointed out, in his second point, he said that Supreme Court would be investigating into all of these things as well. So, if the investigation takes place, do you think that things would get maneuvered towards something else related to obviously treason charges and these sort of charges, and if the probe is presented in front of Supreme Court, then we could see further the case further deepening into?
Right. And particularly regarding how this pans out. Of course, if the motion, the decision is dismissed, then of course something else can happen and it can lead to some questions about the intentions of the speaker. On the other side, when you talk about a motion being carried, then of course something else happens, then all the lawmakers become part of a conspiracy. Asad Saab.
Raja Saab's point first, he mentioned Mr. Fawad Chaudhry's address on the floor of the House. Now, Article 5 pertains to loyalty to the state, and it is our duty as citizens to repose loyalty in that state. I am very suspicious of allegations of treason on either side. I thought that it was very wrong of the leader of the opposition to say that this entire proceeding was treasonous for the sole reason that a gentleman who was convicted of treason, even that did not go through. We saw that entire proceeding being frustrated. So we shouldn't be throwing words around like this as leaders of the opposition and as elected representatives, because this is the most serious allegation one can level to somebody in their capacity as a citizen of Pakistan. This also cuts both ways. For Mr. Fawad Chaudhry to cite Article 5, he will have to provide material on the record, which the Speaker's ruling with great deference does not much aver to, that the parliamentarians who were part of the vote of no confidence were also complicit in a broader foreign conspiracy to enact regime change. Now, none of us would disagree that foreign elements do often try to upend the process in Pakistan. The question is not that. The question is, does the opposition's partaking in a vote of no confidence amount to complicity in disloyalty to the state? That is the core question before the Supreme Court. And as Farrukh Saab has referred to the validity of the Speaker's motion, I completely agree. What his intentions were is the million-dollar question. Many people have cited the Haji Saifullah case, where Mr. Junejo's administration, the dismissal of that administration was ruled as unconstitutional, but the parliament was not restored. I still have a few issues with this case as a precedent, though, because they were transitioning from military rule. The election schedule had already been announced, and party leaders were in favor of going towards elections. So this precedent is not a very clean one as far as the present situation is
Right.
concerned.
Sir, when you say that actually the opposition's role in the vote of no confidence, does it amount to complicity of any sort in that conspiracy or not? Are you saying that only resonance is enough that somebody threatened and then this vote started happening? Or then otherwise, if you look at it, there has to be a causal link between a threat that was made and what happened on the ground, how monies actually were exchanged, how there was a money trail, and if there was any communication between the foreign agents and then the lawmakers on ground.
This way, nobody is asking. Nobody is asking for a smoking gun. But we've seen in 2011 with the entire Memogate case, there were transcriptions of BlackBerry messages. There was a commission of inquiry in which a judge of the Supreme Court held that a high official had been writing a memo to foreign military leadership. Over here, we have one diplomatic cable, the contents of which have been undisclosed, which pertain to another American official referring to his unhappiness with the current government and a mention of the vote of no confidence. Now, this has been upheld, well, not upheld, but this version has been endorsed by the National Security Committee. But even the National Security Committee has not said anything directly referring to the complicity of parliamentarians. So to answer your question, we will need more material than at present to say that this is part of a broader regime change. Perhaps it's many meters short of money changing hands, but it has to be more than what the Speaker and the Law Minister have provided between them.
All right, Asan, when we look at the fact that the Article 5 was, of course, quoted when this motion was rejected, does it require any linkage to be established with regards to the opposition parties or anybody calling for the no confidence motion to be associated with a foreign conspiracy or to be associated with any such intention? Or does that association is not actually required for that Article 5 to be used as a justification for the no confidence motion to be rejected and can be done with regards to any foreign conspiracy or foreign elements being involved?
5 is that it cuts both ways. Never before has Article 5 been used to torpedo a vote of no confidence. Never before has Article 5 in fact been used to call into question the loyalty of political party representatives. So we are in completely uncharted territory, and the Supreme Court will have to ascertain whether or not Article 5 can at all be used as a vehicle to circumvent a parliamentary motion.
Right. If Zaid Gishkori is with us, Zaid, at this moment, one needs to actually establish whether the constitutionality of the matter being heard in the Supreme Court was being questioned today, or the action of the Speaker himself. That is important, because at this moment, if we are still establishing the constitutionality of this matter being heard in the courts, then the timeline will be quite liberal, won't it? Zahid? I think.
Mrs. Zahid, can you hear me? I think we have lost contact with Zahid.
Can I take this question
Absolutely.
to Arif Chaudhry Sahab? Arif Chaudhry Sahab, on one side we are hearing that tomorrow we might expect some interim order, and that means that time is of the essence. On the other side, there seems to be unprecedented burden on the Honorable Court regarding this case, because so many things still need to be established. So how does the Honorable Court reconcile the two? Shrinking timeline and all this huge burden of establishing what is right and what is wrong.
One thing which has been said on by the court today was that, observed and said that, it's a very it's constitutional matter, and we cannot take it lightly, and we cannot move in a hurry, in a rush. So we have to hear the arguments, and we have to decide all these issues. When we are talking about this particular issue at this point in time, connecting the dots with respect to foreign conspiracy or foreign move, directly connected to the motion, no confidence motion. we should not lose the sight, because of this fact that if it is established that directly, because they are going to prove this, and it is the burden on the shoulder of the government. And so far they have done it, by producing all these documents before the Security Committee and all other relevant forums. And if they just bring it on record before the court, and the court reaches to a conclusion, notwithstanding the fact that nobody is going to see it in open court, the court may see it in camera, all its contents, and who has written it, and who is the author, and how does it constitute some responsibility towards anybody else. As far as the question of putting, involving all these MNAs is concerned, it is nothing to do with the MNAs who are, going to vote against the, Prime Minister in no confidence motion. The question is whether this move on behalf of the opposition, the basic movers, this was their independent move, or it was directly connected with that correspondence which transpired.
On one side, we see that there is a constitutional lacuna. That's why we ended up before the Honorable Court. On the other side, we see that Pakistan's democracy owes itself to, Westminster democracy, UK's democracy, and there they have conventions on these matters. Do you think that those conventions also apply here in Pakistan, or we are merely going to look at the law that is on the book and our own precedents?
Any relevance, in Pakistan's context, because things are quite different. Had there been any such like situation, in UK, the Prime Minister would have resigned much earlier. He would not, and even the opposition, instead of banking upon that motion, they would have accepted this, that okay, let's go for a fresh mandate, because these are the traditions. And once we are seeing that everybody is just trying to linger it on, or on one side, one group just wants that on the basis of that motion they should take over the reins of power, and on the other, and the Prime Minister wants that they should instead of resigning, instead of moving out of his office, he just wants that the burden should be on those who are mainly responsible to bring that motion. So that's why I say that we have not established so far any conventions, or even the sagacity we are talking about, or suavity, or any kind of civility which should prevail upon the. You see the language.
Barrister Asad, if we talk about the statements by Prime Minister, of course, before whatever happened in Parliament as well, he has been saying about the cable gate that probably all of these parliamentarians, they are being part of it unknowingly, because they don't know what is going on. And maybe there are he highlighted two of the people from two different parties that he believed that they were part of it. And of course he highlighted the meetups of one of the leaders sitting in London with certain people. He highlighted that. Then he has been talking about all of these things, and he categorically mentioned that if required, he will be showing that letter to Chief Justice as well, and he said it before all this happened. So now, of course, when it comes to investigation, that letter will be shown to Chief Justice on the demand, number one. Number two, I wanted to just ask, what would be the effect of showing that letter and showing the evidences Prime Minister of Pakistan already was talking about to the Chief Justice? At the same time, the parliamentarians who are sent home, of course, he himself claimed that them parliamentarians were not part of the conspiracy at that time. How does it work? And secondly, very quick question: why didn't we see the Speaker of the Assembly that day? Rather, we saw Deputy Speaker. What's the secret behind it?
Well, sir, I fear that when we speak of sedition, or treason or disloyalty, and these are three distinguishable offenses, I should clarify. The Prime Minister can't really say that people were involved in this unknowingly. The main element has to be that these people were intending to be part of a larger conspiracy. They can't be automatons that fell into a larger plan, and therefore the vote of no confidence was rejected. So whatever evidence, or rather whatever material the Prime Minister's team is planning to bring before the Supreme Court, it had better rely on intention as far as a majority of parliamentarians that they think is complicit in the conspiracy is concerned. With regards to showing a letter to the Chief Justice of Pakistan, the Supreme Court was very clear. They said that they would not concern themselves with statements, they would not concern themselves with any extraneous considerations. They had one question, which was that was the Speaker empowered, or rather, could the Speaker pass such a ruling, and was it legal to do so? Now, it may well be that on this current trajectory, a letter is presented to the Chief Justice. The Supreme Court, in its inquisitorial jurisdiction, can take up any material that it deems fit. But I would be surprised if that would become the primary issue, and not on the 3rd of April, what was the material that brought Mr. Qasim Suri to reject that motion. At the end of the day, we are still constrained by 3rd April, and we cannot retrospectively use material that a subsequent investigation might dredge up. So to come to your
last question, since we're almost out of time, when we look at the hearing and of course the urgency of the matter as well, we're expecting a verdict soon. But in case this obviously gets prolonged with regards to the sensitivity of the matter, how does the resolution of the Assembly still continue? Do we still see a caretaker Prime Minister being nominated, or all of the measures and steps being taken subsequent to the resolution of the National Assembly? And then if at the end of the day the verdict is different, does all of that become redundant?
Well, the two things are happening at the same time. The government is rushing forward at breakneck pace to ensure that the former government, to ensure that a caretaker Prime Minister shows up, that there is some form of consultation between the Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition, and that Article 224, which brings in a caretaker government, is implemented. But the opposition, or rather again, the former opposition, has washed its hands of the whole process. That is happening on one hand. On the other hand, the Supreme Court has been very categorical. It has said that everything will be subject to its order. Right. So we cannot say that the Assembly stands formally dissolved. We can say that right now, I don't mean to use any unconstitutional expressions like suspension or abeyance or anything like that, but until the Supreme Court's order is issued, we cannot say with any formality what the current situation of the Assembly is.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Assaduddin Khan and Mr. Arif Chaudhry, for being with us and being a part of the discussion on the debate with regards to, of course, what happened in the Supreme Court today and what continues to happen. Yes, Farrukh, quickly.
Right. First of all, let me just to characterize what Asad was saying. At this moment, you can call the National Assembly Schrodinger's Assembly. Right. It exists and it doesn't exist simultaneously. Right. But regarding the advices, I think at this moment it seems that the Prime Minister is getting ace advice, excellent legal advice. I don't know how, but it is happening. Okay. And opposition seems to be at sea. I don't think they are getting very good advice regarding what is happening. There's one thing that you have to see, and you have to really marvel at the quality of advice. This move to demand some caretaker names, actually, as per the Constitution, is a ninja move. Why? Because if the Leader of Opposition doesn't actually do it, and the current state of affairs continues, the Prime Minister has infinite powers because he has all the fora. Today he addressed the nation through our national circuit, and he kept on talking to the people of Pakistan. Then he can also go and actually agitate on the streets like tonight as well. But if opposition concedes and gives a name, it can become something like endorsing yesterday's steps. Right. So that becomes quite a tricky situation. I think the opposition at this moment at least should go to the court tomorrow and request them that if they give ask for an interpretation, that if they give caretaker names, does that amount to endorsement of that case or not? That is one thing they can do. And regarding Zardari Saab's track record, Zardari Saab is this savant who can play on both sides of the wicket, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes a problem because at this moment you don't know. In Punjab, what he wanted is happening. Parvez Elahi was originally his candidate. So you don't know
what he
whether it
wants.
is his track or whether it is PMLN's track.
All
So
right.
at this moment, the opposition might fight among themselves as well.
All right,
So now,
Faisal, I will
one-liner.
let you give your
Just a
one-liner.
one-liner.
I will let you give your one-liner, but let me also shift to the debate to what we also need to talk about, since we only have a couple of minutes left, to what is going on within India as well. And I'll give you the floor. You'll add your one-liner to that as well. With regards to, of course, who is going to become the next Chief of Army Staff in India, is something that you, Faisal, particularly have talked about a lot. So I'm sure you have an opinion on that as well. Why don't you go ahead?
First of all, going for the one-liner about who's extending the legal advice to the government right now. Well, yesterday, talking to my friends, and I said one thing that, one night of ministership of Fawad Chaudhry
He is brilliant.
is heavier than the 30-year experience of the PDM.
Yeah,
To me, I think the way he did that, nobody could else.
No, he is really very smart.
He's been excellent. And it was an excellent move. Coming towards...
Excellent or not, but it was very
Remains to
smart
be
move.
seen.
Yeah.
Yes, Faisal.
Clever move.
Yeah, coming towards whatever is happening in Indian Army. Well, Sana, remember we discussed it in December as well, and we discussed it in January, February, and we kept on saying that there is someone very important within Indian Army for certain reasons. And that was, at that time, Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey, who hails from Engineers Corps, and he, of course, he commanded 2 of the corps. Number 1, which was amazing for a general hailing from the Engineers Corps, and then suddenly he became Vice Chief of Army Staff, and 2 on above of him, they were sent home, and now he's all set to become Chief of the Army Staff, and the reason behind it is sad reason that he hails from Nagpur, and Nagpur, of course, is the headquarter of RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and this is where everything is leading towards that today's Indian Army is saffronized.
All right. So
Now I
do you
need
think
one
it's-
liner.
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead, and I'll add to that as well. Do you think, Farrukh, you're absolutely sure that this is going to be what is going to transpire in India with regards to Manoj Pandey becoming the Chief of Army Staff?
Not quite. I'm not sure, and I must congratulate our brother Raja Faisal because on this side of the border, since Bipin Rawat actually died. Since then, my brother has been very consistently conversing for Pandeyji, and there seems to be this reason that if an engineer corps man becomes the army chief, the entire army is going to sink. But regardless of that, I think that he should be congratulated. But regarding what is going to happen, look, at this moment, India's democracy or so-called democracy and its decision-making process defy all logic. They defy logic of gravity as well. So I'm not going to predict anything. It can happen that tomorrow Nirvane retires and he's not actually renewed. He's not given the pulpit. Somebody else is as the CDS, and later on perhaps even Pandey ends up there. You never know, because at this moment merit is out of the window. It is loyalty to Narendra Modi or his entire clique that actually matters right now.
You're absolutely right. There's so much that we don't know with regards to what is going to happen with regards to India, because of course so much has been unpredictable, and we've seen a lot of strange things happen there as well. But of course what we hope for with regards to India and around the world as well, that there is peace for the people all around the world, and our domestic situation also calls for peace and progress for Pakistan as well, and that is the real question. And we're going to hope for a decision that is good for the country to come out tomorrow. Hopefully the Supreme Court's hearing is scheduled for 12 p.m. and we'll get to know more then, and we'll join you tomorrow evening to talk more on that. Thank you very much for watching the debate.